Have you ever wondered if certain agent roles were better than others when it comes to ranking up? Since the environment in ranked is vastly different from coordinated team play, certain roles just feel destined to perform worse sometimes. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host, Sergeant Frost, and today we are going to rank the best roles to rank up with from best to worst. At the top of our tier list, we have one of the most consistent classes in the game with Duelists. The reason the Duelist class is considered one of the most consistent classes for individual performance is mainly due to the agents within the class having some of the best overall fragging power in the entire game. Duelist agents typically have selfish kits, which allows them to willingly take more duels during a round, and some of their kits have advanced mobility options, which allows them to have more options to open up rounds. As a result, when paired with a ranked environment where coordination is not as strong, you can create the most impact with Duelists. Another reason for why Duelists are typically the highest impact is because as the entry, more utility that is used to enter a bomb site will be tailored for you. Since success and failure depends largely on how well you can enter a bomb site and create space to get picks for your team, you have justification for asking your teammates to use their utility the way you want it, which also means you have more say on how a round plays out. Duelists also tend to promote practicing strong game mechanic fundamentals while you play, which means as a player you will actually be improving faster than most of the mains of other roles due to the increased number of high-impact duels you will be taking during a match. But keep in mind that this is a double-edged sword. As a Duelist player, if you can't win your fights, you'll more than likely lose the game for your team. There's a fine balance between being aggressive to create opportunities and just running it down trying to get kills. Finding the balance is a skill that a lot of Duelists need to master, as well as having solid fundamentals and aim. If you're carrying the team, you had better be on top of your game and hitting shots, which is why we have to recommend Aim Lab, the best free aim trainer available. Not only will you have access to tons of pro-created playlists to train your skills, Valorant itself has partnered with Aim Lab to create playlists tailored to gamers like us. So if you're looking to take your ranked games by storm as any agent, click the link in the description to develop some pro-level aim today. Now that we've talked about the benefits of playing the Duelist class in ranked, let's cover some negatives and weaknesses to playing this class. First off, Duelists tend to be more one-dimensional in playstyle, which means that there's not as many ways to win for the team other than frag out. While this isn't necessarily a bad thing, other roles usually have multiple ways to be useful for the team due to having higher value utility. If you're not feeling yourself as a Duelist in game, it's often a struggle to get things done. Another thing to note is that it's definitely a much more coveted role. Everyone who cares about winning always wants to play Duelist agents because it's the best way for them to carry their team. This can create a problem for you because as a player in the majority, you will always be competing in lobbies to play that Duelist agent. This means you're more than likely not going to be able to play that Duelist, and you also have to be extremely good if you want to justify always being the Duelist. This isn't really a true weakness of the Duelist role in ranked, but just sort of a something you should expect if you plan on maining an agent in the most popular class in the game. The Initiator class. This class has caused the most meta shifts during the entirety of Episode 3. Right now, we are seeing pro teams shift from always running 2 Duelists in a team comp to having 2 Initiators and only 1 Duelist who's usually a Jet, Reyna, or a Raze. So why is this happening? Well, first off, this episode we got 1 new Initiator who has a very interesting and strong kit in his own right, and 2 other Initiators who got some huge overhauls to their kit at the start of the episode. These host of changes to the Initiator class have elevated Initiators' priority in games because of strong info value, agents with multiple reliable flashes, agents with strong CC, and more. So why is this role strong for ranking? Well, first off, all the Initiators except for Breach have strong information gathering abilities. Sova, Skye, and KO all have unique and powerful abilities within their kits for getting info safely. Sova has a drone and an arrow, Skye has her flashes, her dog, and her ultimate, and KO has a knife which reveals people if it lands. All of these abilities can consistently and safely gather info for a team, which is invaluable in higher elos when moving around the map gets increasingly dangerous when you don't know where people are due to the randomness in game. Additionally, some Initiators have strong dueling capabilities. Some examples of those agents are KO and Skye. This gives you more options to lead around if necessary while also having the utility to help your teammates. And as a result of having more options to make plays for your team, you also open up more opportunities to make the round-winning play. Initiators also have high-impact ultimates that have AoE capabilities within them. For example, Skye has 3 Seekers that can blind enemies. Sova's Hunter's Fury is a cone that can kill multiple players at once. Both KO and Breach have large AoE CC applying ultimates that affect anyone in the nearby area. Initiators have strong aggressive ultimates that can also act as a go button for your team to execute their plans once these ultimates go off. One of the best reasons for why Initiators are so powerful in ranked is due to the fact that they can shot call in games without sacrificing personal performance. For instance, some Initiators like KO and Skye can flex as Duelists, which means they can shot call for their team and call strats, and the agents they are playing allow for them to still have the tools that give them the power to frag out if need be. Even in the case of Sova, you have the tools to open up rounds by finding picks with your ultimate. But of course, it's not all rainbows and sunshine. Unfortunately, some of the agents in this class can be a bit complicated, and they can become hard to pilot in fast-paced situations. Also, a lot of these agents have abilities that can negatively impact your teammates if used at the wrong time, which means you need to be vocal with your team so that you don't end up blinding them or CCing them. Keeping your communication on point is a must for this class if you don't want to end up self-sabotaging rounds unintentionally. And lastly, initiators have strong abilities that have small windows of time to be capitalized on. If your team in solo queue isn't on the same page and they hesitate or back off once you use your abilities, then you are getting no use out of your agent as an initiator. Make sure your team is always on one accord before you start dumping out your utility around the map. Which leads us to our question of the day. Which role do you like playing the most? Personally, I do really love playing the initiators. Two of my favorite agents are in the initiator class, KO and Sova. Both of these agents have very unique utility that I just find I really click well with when I'm trying to use it in game. And personally, I think Initiator is the best balance between being a duelist and also being a sentinel in terms of how you use your abilities. So my personal favorite class that I find myself winning with the most is the Initiators. Let us know what role you guys like playing the most in the comment section down below. Now let's hop right back into the video. Coming in third on our tier list, we have the trusty controller class. Let's preface this section by saying that controllers are always a class that is an absolute must-have in every game you play. These agents are responsible for smoking up the map, and at this point in Valorant's lifetime, going into a game without smokes or vision blocking of any type is asking to lose a game for free no matter what rank you are. With that being said, you get the idea that every team comp needs someone to play smokes or Viper so that your team can have some kind of vision denial. But controllers are more than just smoke machines. They also can dictate what type of playstyle your team will have, depending on the team comp and the map. For example, using a Viper or an Astra is great for teams that want to have lockdown defenses. These two agents function as controller-sentinel hybrids due to the amount of CC or damage abilities that they have in their kits. This makes it a lot easier for your team to control choke points and dish out damage and CC with their abilities. On the flip side, using agents like Omen, Viper, and Brim might be better on attack due to their flexibility with what they can do with their kits, and especially due to Viper and Brimstone's post-plant presence with their mollies and ultimates. The controller class has agents that can dictate how a team comp functions and what their win conditions are in game. Even though these agents are quite powerful on paper, in practice, these agents aren't the most popular to play because players find them boring, or too separated from the main action, so it's expected that no one is running to insta-lock a Brimstone or an Astra. But keep in mind that there's a side benefit to maining controllers. We have to admit, controller is a role that most people don't like playing, so not many players have experience, which means if you are in a game and someone has to fill in controller, the average player won't be very good at setting up the team. If you are mainly a controller player, sometimes being the bigger man and just taking the role early on in agent selection for your team will increase your chances of winning significantly. Having someone who is adept on a certain smoke agent compared to a random player filling on a controller can make a night and day difference when it comes to setting up a team for success. Remember guys, controllers are like catchers in baseball. You can't win a game without a good one. So what are some weaknesses for this role? First off, this class does lack individualized utility. In hindsight, that's kind of expected because their kit revolves around putting down smokes and using CC abilities. But most of this class is either a ton of CC abilities or a lot of damage abilities with no real individuality in their abilities. And secondly, controllers lack durability. What I mean by that is controllers are arguably the most important role on a team comp because their abilities are needed to move around the map, and this goes for offense and defense. Controllers have to play really conservative because they don't want to die, but they also don't have the tools to survive past one gunfight usually. So controllers are kind of pigeonholed into a baiter mentality that can hurt their performance and also inhibit their impact in a round. Controllers need to stay alive, and this oftentimes can force them to play scared just so that they can live as long as possible. And on the same note of passive play, the last class on our best roles for ranked tier lists are the Sentinels. This class recently got a new addition to its roster in the form of Chamber, and he brought a breath of fresh air to what was becoming a pretty stale role this year. Don't get me wrong, this role is great for site defenses. Agents like Chamber, Cypher, and Killjoy specialize in setting up defensive traps on bomb sites or connectors. This role's strength is site denial, map manipulation, and supporting their teammates with some info gathering abilities. On attack, Sentinels are also great flank watchers, and they can make retaking bomb sites really difficult when your Sentinel players know how to set up their abilities well. There's a lot to like about this role if you're the type of player who likes to play slow or methodical. With that being said, this class does have a few weaknesses that obviously hurts them in ranked. Firstly, and the most obvious reason, outside of flank watching when attacking, the Sentinel class really is meant for defense and denying site entry. This class does not have much to open up rounds or assist in aggressive duels, and that makes it really hard for them to take fights. Sentinels are known for lurking a lot, but typically lurking is not seen as a good strategy to win in ranked, and Sentinel agents generally do not have the tools needed to impact a round significantly unless your teammates are also doing well. Sentinels have this weird paradox where if your team is doing well, you will naturally have less action. But on the other hand, if your team is doing badly, you'll have a lot more action as a response. Obviously, that's not a very good thing for ranked because that means unless your team is losing, you don't really have the tools to carry. And even in that situation, it's hard for a Sentinel to constantly clutch rounds. The Sentinels as a whole are a great role to play in higher elos where the responsibilities are more relevant. But other than that, you'll struggle to find impact without simply being better than your opponents mechanically. And that wraps it up for our best roles for ranked video. If you did enjoy, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to visit ProGuides.com. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, and I will see you all again in the next video.